Hello students, this is Dr. C, and in this short screencast I'm going to show some basics on how to use Google Sheets, and particularly how to use Google Sheets to solve equations. So in this particular case we're solving the equation 5x squared minus 7x plus 2 equals 4x squared minus 3x plus 14. You'll notice that this is number 1 from the Google Sheets classroom assignment. So the first skill that we have to have is building the list of x values. So for that, we're going to start in this case with x value of 0. And the first thing that we're going to learn is how to program Google Sheets to initiate a pattern. So in this case, whenever we want to program Google Sheets, we're going to press the equals key. And when you press equals, it basically lets Google Sheets know that you're going to be writing a formula or some kind of a direction to Google Sheets, as opposed to just typing text. So in this case, I'm going to say that this particular cell, which is A3, is going to equal the value that's in cell A2, but I want to add 1 to that value. So this should return a value of 1, and you can notice that it's actually previewing that value 1 for you. Okay. So if you click back on cell A3, you'll notice up here that it's defined as A2 plus 1. The purpose of doing that is so that now we can drag this small blue square in the bottom right corner, if you notice that right there. We can drag that down and Google Sheets will know that we want to basically continue the pattern that we started in cell A3. So you'll notice that now cell A4 is defined as A3 plus 1, cell A5 is A4 plus 1, and that pattern basically continues. So that's a very useful feature, and that all was initiated by dragging that blue square in the bottom right corner. Okay, so we'll end up using that same functionality again very shortly, so watch out for that. Now, coming to this cell right here, which is cell B2, we want to program Google Sheets to calculate this expression right here for when x has a value of 0. So this expression, which I've written, represents 5x squared minus 7x plus 2. And Google Sheets does not understand that as a function or a formula. It just sees that as text. So all these are characters. This is just the title for us to see what's going to be happening in that column. But Google Sheets doesn't understand that any more than it understands this text here that says the value of x. So we'll have to do some programming. And like I said before, excuse me, to program Google Sheets, you have to press the equals key to let it know that you're now typing in a sort of command. And we're telling it that we want the value in cell B2 to equal 5 and then times, and for times I'm going to use the asterisk, the x value, which in this case is the value that's in A2. Then it's going to be minus, oh sorry, we need to back that up. So it's actually 5 times the value in A2 squared. So I want to use the caret key, which is shift 6, to show squaring right there, and then minus 7 times A2, and then finally plus 2. Okay, so if you go back up there, you'll see that when you plug 0 into this expression, or rather substitute 0 into this expression, you will get a value of 2. And we can do the same thing here for this expression. So this will be, again, equal to, so the contents of C2 will be equal to 4 times what's in A2 again, squared, minus 3 times what's in A2, and plus 14. And that returns a value of 14. A side note that I have to mention right now, I know that some people have been getting errors when they try to do this x and then caret 2 to represent x squared. More on that later. There's a way around that glitch. So for the time being though, everything's working properly on this spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do is select cells B2 and C2. So I basically just held down my trackpad and highlighted those two cells, B2 and C2. And there's that square again in the bottom right corner. And what we're going to do is grab that square and we're going to drag it down so that Google Sheets will know to basically repeat the same kind of formula that we've created in B2 and C2 for all the corresponding B's and C's of each row. So you'll notice, for example, that in row 4, it's calculating B4, and we can just look right up here to the formula window. It's calculating B4 as 5 times A4 squared minus 7 times A4 plus 2, and that's exactly what we want it to do. And again, that was initiated by highlighting B2 and C2 and dragging that square in the bottom right corner so that it would transpose those formulas down to the other cells. So now we have basically a list of values for the left side of the equation, which is represented by this, and the right side of the equation. And here we have the x values that make those values happen. So as we scroll down the list, we'll notice, for example, that when x is 6, and I'm just going to highlight that a little bit. When x is 6, both the left side of the equation and the right side of the equation have a value of 140. So that tells me that the x value 6 makes the equation true, therefore it is a solution, and it satisfies the equation. Now, this particular equation is a quadratic equation, so we know that we ought to be able to, or we possibly might be able to find 2 solutions at most. So we would not probably stop just at this one solution. So I will continue to scroll through the list, and so far I don't see any other values of x that make the left side and the right side equal to each other. So what we'll do is look at some negative values. So for that, I can again go back to cell A3, and this time I'm going to define it as equal to cell A2, but this time minus 1. So in that way it'll become negative 1, as you can see in the preview. And if we continue that pattern, we can grab the blue square and drag it down. And now we'll see that we have a sequence of negative numbers. And we can notice right here, and actually I should unhighlight this since this is no longer a solution. But we should be able to notice that when x is negative 2, the value on the left side of the equation and the value on the right side of the equation are the same. So negative 2 is also a solution of the equation. It satisfies the equation. So knowing that this is a quadratic and we found 2 real solutions, we pretty much know we found the solution set because quadratics can have at most 2 real solutions. But let's say we thought there was another solution out there and that it wasn't any of the integers that we've looked at. Let's suppose we thought there was some decimal value that was not an integer at which we might find a solution. So really just doing the same thing, I would say cell A3 is equal to cell A2. But this time let's use a common difference that's not 1 or negative 1. So for example, what if we wanted to use 0.2? And I ought to type a plus there. So 0.2. So you can see that what will happen is, that wasn't good, equals A2 plus 0.2. Okay, that's better. All right, so we have that. And if I again drag that blue square down, Google Sheets will catch on to the pattern, and you'll see I get all of these incremental values of x. So you basically control how precise you want to be with the x values. So again, looking through, we know we're not going to find a solution, but this is what we would do if you were looking for a solution. All right, so those are some basics on how we use Google Sheets to solve equations. And I had also mentioned that I would tell you a fix for the x squared glitch. So let me do that really quickly. So I'm going to redefine this same function, the 5x squared minus 7x plus 2. So Sheets has a formula, or a function rather, that does powers. So I'm going to show that. So we're going to say this equals 5, and instead of saying a2 to the power 2, I'm going to use this power function. So times POW. Okay, and you notice when you type in POW, Sheets is telling you here that this is the power function, which is a number raised to a power, exactly what we want. Anytime that you call a function in Google Sheets or even in Excel, you want to use a parentheses so that now you can put the input of the function. So it really is the same idea of functions that we talked about in Unit 1. Now, each function has an input and an output. So the input of this function, as you can see Google Sheets is telling you, is the base of the power, and then comma, and then the exponent of the power. So remember we talked about powers being made up of bases and exponents. So in this case, our base, which it's highlighting and telling you, is A2. Okay, then we want to type the comma because there are two parts to this input, so we separate them with a comma. And the power that we want A2 raised to is 2. So this is how we would say 5 times A2 raised to the second power. Okay. Then I want to do minus 7 times A2, and then again plus 2. Okay, so that gives me the same value. And if I were to drag the blue square, it will give me all the same values below also. Okay, just to show that same process again, I'm going to do this formula in an alternate version. So it's going to be equals 4, don't forget the asterisk for times, and then we want to call the power function, so POW. The input of the power function is the base, which is A2, comma, the power that it's being raised to, which is 2, minus 3 times A2, and plus 14. And that should give us 14 like it did before. Okay, so obviously that could be used if you want to square a number, cube a number, or raise a number to any power. And that will definitely come in handy as you're doing this assignment. So this is just an introduction to Google Sheets and software for spreadsheets in general, a useful skill. And if you have any other questions, let me know and we'll try to get those answered. All right, signing off. See you in class.